In the last 3 years, I have become very interested in several breathing techniques. I remember when I was 13 or so reading this book that claimed that in some monasteries they heal severe conditions and diseases just with breathing techniques, but it didn't specify anything. This was way before the internet, so I couldn't really find relevant material about it. In the last 3 years, I've been introduced to several breathing patterns and techniques. The Wim Hof method that some of you know, and the so-called box breathing that the Navy SEALs do, and some other techniques that were suggested to me during a coaching and training program I went through for a year and a half. You may know I just did a documentary about the Isha Kriya meditation. In that course of that experiment, I read the book by Sadhguru called Inner Engineering, where he, on one page, he describes breathing patterns. And one of them is breathe only twice a minute. One suggests to breathe only once a minute, and I tried it. I cannot yet really get to once a minute. When I do a lot of preparation and pre-breathing, I just about can make it. But I found it relatively easy to do two in and outs a minute. I tried that a couple times and I thought, I really like this one. Oh ho! So 3 years ago, I did a presentation training with a French guy in Prague who pointed out I had all these involuntary twitches, and there were small twitches that were connected to fears in situations. They were subtle. Since then I started working on it with different methods, and this breathe twice a minute pattern has helped that quite a bit. I'm not sure whether it would have helped the same if I hadn't done some other stuff before that to build onto the foundation. I don't know, but I did it, and I did some 8-minute sessions. They had a deeply slowing down effect on my whole system, and they echoed way into the next day. So I thought, I really like this one. So I'm going to do a similar documentary as I did with the Isha Kriya. I'm going to do this and try a few longer sessions, and every few days, every few weeks, record a short clip, see where I'm at, see if people notice anything, if I notice anything, and then assess it from there. As I said in the other documentary, I'm a controller. I'm not very emotional to begin with. That's something that's very supportive of that kind of job. Yeah, so I'm not invested one way or the other. It might help, it might not. Let's observe and find out. And I don't have a 200 people control group that I can try against this. So all this is going to be personal, subjective experience and opinion, and subjective interpretation. So I have no claim of bringing healing or enlightenment to anyone. Certainly not me. If I tried to lead the world, we probably would be over in 15 minutes. I'll try to be a humble observer. Just now I had my 30-minute session in the forest. It really slows down all the hectic and impatient parts of me. This is the second week of July, and I've been doing the 2 breaths a minute meditation for a few weeks. And I've been thinking I should actually have a specific measure that tells me whether I'm making progress, whether this is useful or not. As a controller, I'm all about measuring things. Honestly, I still haven't found any measure that is specific and makes sense in the context of this specific meditation. So I'm just gonna stay with subjective impressions so far. I've been doing 8-minute sessions every evening, and sometimes when I'm on a longer train ride, I do it there, or a longer bus ride, I'll do it there. A few times I went to the forest and did longer sessions there. What I have found is that I have found definitely more joy in my work. It's a pretty joyous work anyway, being an instructor for adults in accounting and payroll and being a controller. So for me that is joyful as it is already. But I found it to be even more joyful from an even deeper level. And also there's a vague idea of understanding something on some level without necessarily understanding it in the way that I used to understand understanding. Not sure that makes any sense, but anyway. This is the 3rd week of July 22, and I'm in the tiny village of Sněžník in the Czech Republic. Just did another session here in the hotel room. I've done a few sessions in the forest, where I'm forest and mountain hiking here in this area, which is quite beautiful. What so far this slow breath meditation does, it seems to slow down and tone down a lot of the monkey theater that used to go on in the back of the mind. That's a lot less. There's one thing I've been thinking about lately. There's in the old books of Carlos Castaneda, which I think are for the most part made up bullshit, but there are a few little gems in there, and one is a technique called stopping the world. Well, of course you do not stop the world, but you stop your interpretation of the world. But what a lot of people, I think, miss here is that the thought loops alone are a very, very small part of stopping the world. The more important part of stopping the world is stopping habits that reinforce the old worldview, which have a lot to do with body posture, breathing patterns, and movement. So yeah, in some way this slow breath meditation stops the world of the whole craziness in the background. Also, my head is not twitching as much as it used to. So that's another visible effect. This is the end of the first week of August. It's another 2 weeks since my last entry. And I used to do 8 minute or 15 minute sessions. Now I just tried a 28-minute session. It seems that this slow breathing exercise creates a space in which things can expand and grow. I don't like such vague and undefined words, but it's the best that I have right now. It seems to create some space, and I have more space to feel feel things. The last session, 3 times I drew quicker breaths because I felt out of oxygen, and I don't think it's a big deal. With this technique, I don't focus much on posture or anything rigid. It's mostly about the slow breathing for me. What I found interesting, a few days ago I was recording some guitars, and I hadn't played in quite a while, but the timing wasn't so bad. That had always been my weak point, the timing. I hadn't always landed quite on the downbeat when I should, and it was considerably good. It had been acceptable for an amateur, the timing, but it was not really good. But that time I thought, oh, I'm actually hitting the one, in not just in the first bar, but in the following bars. I tend to hit the one, which is pretty good. I mean, precisely hit the one, not off. I like that. We are in the middle of August 2022, and I think I'm going to conclude this documentary now. What I usually ask people when they tell me about seminars, trainings, processes that they've done is, what result were you able to achieve after the program that you had not been able to achieve before? Usually they don't say much. And now I'm at the point where I don't have too much to say about that. I've for the last 50 years that I can remember, I've always been, for the most part, pretty nervous, with a lot of nervous energy. And that often came out in involuntary twitching. I gave another public talk last week where I'm twitching a lot less than I used to. When you look closely through the whole thing, you can still see some micro twitches, but it's not a total twitch fest anymore. So that is the main visible thing I can point to about this slow breathing exercise. I wonder if, some things that I do, I wonder would they have had the same effect on me 25 years ago or 30 years ago when I started this journey of digging myself out of a really deep, nasty mud hole. And I think this one would have had a profound effect. I think it would have had a calming effect. I think it's very physical and very direct, very straightforward. Also, these things build on one another. Like the beginning of the year, I started with my meditation teacher, my Portuguese meditation teacher, which then sort of led me to the Isha Kriya meditation, about which I did a documentary lately, which then led me to this, to do this for some weeks, which then led me to the next thing, which I'm beginning to try out now, and I will keep you posted about it as soon as I have any specifics about that. This is my personal subjective opinion. I feel calmer. Godspeed.